All right, that was snippets from both the Commonwealth and the defense in their opening statements. Today, they are back at it, and the accuser is back on the stand, and we are going to be airing that within the next hour as soon as we get it in. Let's bring in our guest for the hour, talking about this fascinating case in studio. Chris Ramey is with us, was here last hour as well, and trial attorney Mackenzie Joy Brennan is also with us. Mackenzie, to you first. What's your overall take of this case, the strengths and maybe weaknesses of the Commonwealth's case?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are some pretty big holes. Liam O'Brien's absence is a big one. It's too bad, and you have to wonder if there are some organizational loyalties that kept him from testifying, but that would have been very helpful. On the other hand, even according to the accuser's account, he was asleep, so who knows what he could testify to versus not. But certainly that gives an opening for reasonable doubt. The lack of DNA in the rape kit, for those of us who know how these things go, that's not dispositive at all, especially given that she had had consensual sex with somebody shortly before this happened. We don't know if DNA would have been produced by the encounter that she had with the person that she's actually accusing. But again, for a jury, that is something that they would like to see, especially given that she did seek a rape kit. And I don't know, I do think the fact that she's an attorney could cut both ways. As your guest was saying, for those of us who are attorneys, we know that oath is taken so seriously that she wouldn't put herself through this if it were frivolous or attention-seeking, although I don't know what kind of positive attention would come out of something like this. But I could see jury members thinking that she's savvy and knows how to fake something like this if they are disinclined to believe a victim to begin with. Obviously, we know that this ended in a mistrial before, so there are some holes that can be exploited.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that a jury couldn't come to a decision the first time around is a potential issue. The O'Brien not being there, Mackenzie brings up a good point. This is an intentional, I'm going to support my firefighter buddy and not participate? Do you think?
I think that there could be multiple reasons for it, least of which, or most of which maybe, is that he lives in Ireland and getting...
He got himself over here for the St. Patrick's Day parade last year.
Exactly. But, I think that does play a role in travel and expense and all of that. But I also think in not having the power of the subpoena over him to force him to come. Yeah. And so you remember the prosecutor has to be able to get people there. And if he doesn't want to be there, she can't make him be there, in terms of getting him to testify.
Why would she make up this story?
I just...
She doesn't know the guy.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to. I really don't, Ted. We were talking about this a little bit. There's no lawsuit happening, no civil lawsuit happening. There's no motive to lie. She's a survivor putting herself out there for scrutiny. She knows what, as a lawyer, she knows what this is like. She knows what, she's the victim shaming and all of that will accompany it. I don't think that there is strong motivation for her to be making something like this up. They don't have a history together. It doesn't track to me as a made-up story.
Right.
Where some of them, you think, oh, that would be a really good one for the defense for a made-up story.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why she would make this up. She's already in a hotel room and admits that on her own volition. It's not like she left and had regrets about that decision. It's a unique story. Let's get a break. When we come back, we'll be playing out more of the testimony from this case out of Boston, but we're going to head to California. Jake Harrow has pled guilty to the murder of his 7-month-old baby. This was a shocker. Stay with us.
I'm going to ask you a lot of intensely personal questions. How do you explain it? The worst crime anyone can imagine. Do you feel like you took the fall for this murder? Tell me in your own words, what happened? Let's get started.
Interview with a Killer. New season premieres Saturday, October 25th. Only on Court TV.
We're going to switch gears now to California briefly, where the father of missing baby Emmanuel has now pled guilty to his infant son's murder.
How do you plead to the charge in count 1 of the amended felony complaint of violation of Penal Code Section 187A?
I'm guilty.
Okay. And for clarification for the record, that's going to be in the second degree?
Yes.
Sir, do you admit that you committed a violation of Penal Code Section 187, Subdivision A, a felony, in that on or about August 5th of 2025 through and including August 14th of 2025 in the county of Riverside, state of California, you did willfully and unlawfully murder baby doe, initials EH, a human being?
I admit.
Jake Harrow, you see him, he sobbed in court yesterday as he admitted to abusing and murdering his defenseless 7-month-old son. Baby Emmanuel's remains still have not been found. He admits to doing it, but he apparently hasn't told anybody the details. His wife, Rebecca Harrow, was in court too, but pled not guilty. She's scheduled to have her preliminary hearing on charges of murder and filing a false police report on November 3rd, the same day that her husband Jake is scheduled to be sentenced. The false report charges stem from the defendant's falsified reports of Emmanuel's abduction on August 14th, when Rebecca Harrow claimed she was attacked in a parking lot while changing the baby's diaper. You remember this? And Emmanuel was then kidnapped. Of course, it was all a bunch of lies. We'll continue to monitor the developing case. Let's talk about it. Krista Ramey and Mackenzie Joy Brennan still with us. And Krista, this was, you've got this family telling this elaborate story about an abduction. Do you think that Dad is covering for Mom, and at the end of the day, he's gonna fall on the sword, and that's why he's not coming completely clean? Because where's the baby?
Where's the baby? And when this happened, I thought that immediately. Like this it seemed orchestrated, and like stories that we've heard in the past with babies gone missing. I think about several murders that have ended up happening that way. But here you don't have any evidence of where this child is. No remains have been found, and the baby was with the mother when it happened. So I think there is something to that, Ted. Why haven't we heard where the baby is? And maybe the father just quite frankly doesn't know. Maybe he is guilty by helping her. Ultimately, did she leave the baby in the car? Did she shake the baby? What happened? Well, I don't know if we'll ever know. But that is the biggest question mark.
Yeah, let's listen to them telling folks, please bring my baby back.
We come to you guys asking you to help us find our son. He was abducted last night from Big 5. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper. And we just ask if anybody knows anything to please contact Ukaipa Police Department.
Don't hesitate, just call.
Mackenzie, while that was happening, to Krista's point, there was the uh-oh feeling, and just watching it was cringy because you felt like, oh no, something's going on here. What do you think is the reason that Dad is saying I did it and Mom is pleading not guilty?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Certainly, she must know something because she was the one who was with the child in their version of events when he disappeared. On the other hand, he does have the history of violent abuse of children, at least something that reached a court level, and she doesn't. So that does make me think that he is more prone to violence. I also think there are plenty of reasons, none of which we want to think about too deeply, that could explain why he was unable to find remains or why they were unable to find remains. Obviously, we saw footage of him out there searching with police, so there has been an attempt. But I don't know. I think all of us saw the missing kid poster and cringed a little bit. And like you were saying, Ted, we all knew from the beginning that this was not going to end well.
Yeah, and we'll say it's a good point that, maybe she was covering for him with the elaborate, Big 5 kidnapping story. He said, here's what we're going to do, or tell this story. And a lot of questions, but the charade is over, at least on Dad's part. Let's get a break. We're waiting again for that testimony to come in from Boston. But as we wait, you remember this. We saw this entire trial play out. Bionca Ellis found guilty. Well, her attorneys joined Julie Grant this morning, and we're going to listen to that when we come back. They say the jury got it wrong. Welcome back to Court TV Live. Good to be with you on this Friday as we round out another week. We're awaiting more testimony out of Boston in the firefighter case. We're going to turn our attention to Ohio now, where the attorneys for now convicted killer Bionca Ellis spoke with Court TV earlier this morning. Ellis was, of course, found guilty on all charges earlier this week for fatally stabbing a toddler and injuring his mother. The jury deliberated for 8 hours before making this decision, and they were tasked with making the decision of whether or not she was legally insane at the time of this incident. She had a mental history, a mental illness history, schizophrenia, etc. And jurors were very clear that it was made clear by both sides that the history was there, but did she know right from wrong? Earlier today, the defense attorneys spoke with our Julie Grant about the verdict and Ellis's mental health.
Sad case all the way around. I mean, a young child died, for no reason but for her mental health. And I think the jury possibly got it wrong. I think our doctors was correct. I mean, she's a sick woman. She's been sick for a long time. And Fernando and I had an opportunity to meet her when she was at one of her worst points. And once forced medication got involved, she was a totally different person. I mean, totally articulate, a sweet young lady. You would never think she could harm a fly if you met the lady on medication. We took breaks to make sure her medication remained on schedule. You wouldn't have noticed, but the judge synchronized breaks for the jury so she could go down into the jail to make sure she was administered her medication. And she was heavily medicated. She didn't communicate much with us, but she did communicate.
Ellis will be sentenced October 27th, 8:30 a.m., facing life in prison, of course, for those guilty verdicts. Still with us, Krista Ramey, Mackenzie Joy Brennan. Mackenzie, this is a difficult case because mental illness was clearly present in the defendant, but at the end of the day, the jury decided with the state. Your thoughts overall, and listening to the defense attorney, your thoughts there?
Yeah, I used to work in adult guardianship, and the difficult thing about forced medication is that it can only be enforced until or unless that person is no longer a threat to themselves and others. And obviously, you see in a case like this, they then are free to go off their medication, and what is to prevent that happening again in future? You often see cases where either the medication side effects are things that somebody can't tolerate, or they think, I'm doing so much better, I don't need this anymore, when really it was the medication that made them so much better. But enforcing that beyond some sort of criminal intervention isn't possible after they are stabilized. So I think that's the problem going forward when somebody has not been medicating themselves of their own volition and that ended up in something extremely harmful happening. And so that's what you have here.
Yeah, a lot of times, Krista, unfortunately, when you see something tumbling out of control within an individual's mental health, it's not until they commit a crime until that they can really be handled by law. Yeah, especially an adult.
Yeah, yes, there are. I know that there are laws in California, 5150 holds you can put people on. It's only for limited periods of time. It's not. It's for I think 72 hours, and then you release them if there's nothing, if they won't self-commit. So there are some ways to intervene, but really you're watching that spiral. And like Mackenzie said, there's not really anything much you can do about it in terms of stopping it unless you can do one of those holds, and that's only temporary. It's a Band-Aid. When someone's got a mental illness like this, there's going to be more times it's going to pop up.
Both sides, as referenced in that interview, had experts that testified. Let's take a listen to both sides.
after that? Can you identify what your opinion is?
So ultimately, to summarize, it's my opinion with reasonable medical certainty that Ms. Ellis suffers from a severe mental disease, namely schizophrenia, and was experiencing symptoms at that time related to this illness that caused her to not know what she was doing was wrong.
It's my opinion with reasonable medical certainty, however, that the defendant did not have a severe mental disease or defect at the time of the June 3rd, 2024 offense that caused her to not know the wrongfulness of the offenses. So despite having schizophrenia, it did not cause her to not know the wrongfulness of the offenses.
All right, experts cancel each other out a lot of times. Mackenzie, in this case, we were just talking while that was playing. Jurors have a choice in a case like this, and that is guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. If the verdict form read guilty but nuts, you would have jurors say, oh yeah, that's exactly what we saw play out here. But the not guilty portion of that verdict form, I think, makes it virtually impossible for jurors to say, no, we can't find her not guilty. We watched her stab a 5-year-old.
I think you're absolutely right. And that is something that a lot of states have actually done, really in the wake of John Hinckley Jr.'s conviction, or not guilty verdict, rather, for that reason, that the public reaction to finding somebody not guilty is that it's just unpleasant. So a lot of states have enacted this guilty but insane verdict option to avoid exactly what you're talking about.
And then it then triggers, and because jurors really are not supposed to think about punishment, but of course you do. I mean, the idea of letting this woman out is horrifying for a juror, right? Yeah. What she did was dangerous and scary on every level.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what jurors actually talk about when they're back there, but of course they talk about things they're told not to talk about or not to consider, because it's human nature to think about exactly what you're talking about, Ted, about, this person's going to get out and do it again. They're going to go off their meds just like they have in the past, and they're going to be a danger to society, so we can't do the guilt or not guilty by reason of insanity, because like John Hinckley Jr., that person's going to get out.
And what's wrong with that thought process as a society? Because when someone does do something so egregious, so scary, who wants to roll the dice that it's not going to happen again?
No one, and I'm fine with it. I mean, I really am. I wish there was a not guilty or guilty but insane option, rather. I think that provides a different level of comfort to people that don't want to say the not guilty part of it. And ultimately, in states where there is the guilty but insane option, I'm tongue twisting this up, they're incarcerated still. It's not like they're out free as a bird. So, there is safeguards with that, but I think it maybe gives someone a little bit more comfort, because the big question, always is, did they know right from wrong at the time they did it? And
right. And who knows? Because who knows what's going on in that head, or in any of these scenarios. Yeah. They're all sad, and I think it was well put by that attorney. This is such a sad case from start to finish, and it just is. There's no other way around it. A little boy lost his life, and his parents lost their boy. Let's get a break. When we come back, a woman sentenced for a fatal crash that left 2 Amish children dead. The twin, Samantha Peterson, what she had to say in court.
Donna Adelson was part of a conspiracy to kill her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Dan saw Donna as dangerous.
She's the matriarch mastermind.
She's just being a parent, not a killer.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. Season finale, Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific. And during the finale, don't miss an exclusive preview for the new season of Interview with a Killer. Only on Court TV.
Let's turn to Minnesota now, where the woman who killed 2 Amish children in a meth-fueled crash was sentenced earlier this week. Samantha Jo Peterson pled guilty to 2 felony charges stemming from the September 2023 crash. Peterson initially tried to pin the crime on her twin sister at the scene, but now she admits she was the driver and was high when she crashed into the back of a horse-drawn buggy. Let's take you into the courtroom now. Listen to Samantha Peterson addressing the judge.
I want to begin by saying how deeply sorry I am to Sarah, Emmanuel, and the entire Miller family. I stand before you today to take full accountability and acknowledge that I should have never been driving on the morning of September 25th, 2023. The loss of Irma and Wilma and the harm that I've caused to Alan and Rosanna are entirely my fault. No words or apologies can bring back Irma and Wilma, but I need you to know how truly, deeply sorry I am. My actions caused the Miller family a pain that no parents or family should ever have to experience. The guilt and shame I live with every day are nothing compared to the loss that they've endured. I know I have caused an unthinkable void in their lives. I cannot imagine the grief that they carry each day, but I recognize the depth of the harm that I've done. I think about it every single day, and I know I will carry that weight for the rest of my life. There's no excuses for my action that morning. Every day I wish I could go back and make a different choice. My addiction took a lot from me, but it took your world from you, and for that, I will never be able to forgive myself. Every day, I wish it would have been me instead of them. I know forgiving myself may never happen, but I am working towards healthier ways to cope, staying committed to my sobriety, and dedicating my life to honoring the memory of those I took from this world so that nothing like this ever happens again. I also want to sincerely apologize to law enforcement and to the court for my dishonesty following the accident. In my fear and shame, I made terrible decisions to deceive the police and the justice system. I know that my actions disrespected the officers who are simply doing their jobs and the court that seeks truth and justice. I am deeply sorry for that. I have learned that integrity and honesty must guide my life moving forward, no matter how difficult the truth may be. The guilt and sorrow I feel are constant reminders that the devastation I caused. I wish with everything in me that I could go back and change what happened, but I know I cannot. Since that day, I have chosen to get clean and sober. I have been fully committed to my recovery and actively participating in therapy to address the issues that led me down this path. These changes cannot undo what happened, but they are steps to ensure that I never cause harm again. I know that no words can undo the harm I caused or bring peace to the family that has suffered such an irreplaceable loss. All I can do is admit my wrongs and continue to work every day to live differently and accept the consequences for my actions. Your Honor, I humbly ask for mercy in sentencing, not to avoid accountability, but to allow me the opportunity to continue the work I've started in my recovery and to someday make amends in any way possible. I'm committed to honoring the memory of Irma and Wilma in every way that is honest, sober, and responsible. Thank you.
I do find that you are genuinely remorseful. I think you were candid in your material, your treatment provider notes, that you're certainly remorseful for what happened. I do disagree with your attorney that in the moment, at the time, I don't think that those text messages showed genuine remorse. I think there was some remorse, and that you do have a conscience, which was demonstrated by some of your actions. But I think primarily at the time, if you really look at those text messages, it was really all about you and what was happening to you and your life at a time when children were literally dying in a ditch. So I don't agree on that assessment, but the case law is clear that when you come to court and everything that happens in between, you've demonstrated remorse. I believe your heartfelt statement here today. You do have the support of friends and family as well. And of course, the major component with respect to rehabilitation, one of the factors, is that you have completed extensive treatment, which is to your credit. I want to be clear, though, that I am not departing from the presumptive sentence. It's not appropriate in this particular case for a number of reasons, despite the arguable presence of that particular factor. Particularly, the court looked at, when reviewing all of the information and those sentencing factors, the conduct itself cries out for a consequence, accountability, a punishment. You were a meth user for over 10 years. You had the 2 prior DWIs, and you were still choosing to use and be on the road. You had numerous opportunities to address the issue prior to this incident and this intervention. You were driving on an open road, high on meth. There was no visibility issues or weather issues, and you plowed into that buggy. You did call 911, but you didn't identify yourself on that 911 call. And while you may, based on your material, have comforted, at least for a short period of time, one of the children, your action that day quickly turned to intentional and deliberate attempt to not be caught. And that was your focus. That focus was something that you had done in the past, apparently, with your giving false name to police. I know it came up in your sister's sentencing as well. 36 hours later, law enforcement came to your door, and you were still attempting to not be caught. It took other people doing the right thing. Your Hy-Vee HR director, your Hy-Vee manager, your niece even, if memory serves, went to personnel at school and indicated that this is not right. I'm scared because they've switched and my mom may go to prison. Other people knew the difference, even children, between right and wrong, and you were still focused on not getting caught. Ms. Peterson, I am committing you to the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 48 months. Minnesota law requires that you serve at least 2/3 or 32 months, with the remaining 16 months on supervised release. Ms. Peterson, I will note too, and I'm sure you've talked about this with your attorney, it's entirely possible, because of all the good work you've done and the treatment that you've participated in and completed, you may very well qualify for early release programming with the Department of Corrections, and of course you've earned that as well with your conduct.
All right, quickly, reaction. Mackenzie Joy Brennan, she'll be out less than 4 years, it sounds like. 2 kids are dead.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not dissimilar from the Ellis situation, given that, she's in treatment now, but we do see that they said that she'd been using for 10 years prior and had 2 prior DWIs. So the fact that she is eventually remorseful and seeks treatment in that pre-sentencing period, it's a pretty high incentive in that period to be your best self. So I don't know. It's a little low, but hopefully it keeps her clean, I guess.
Quickly, Krista, too light?
I think it is. If I'm the mother of those 2 children, I'm pissed about this.
Yeah.
Really pissed.
Yeah. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you, ladies. Let's get a break. When we come back, we are going to be heading to Massachusetts. This Irish firefighter rape trial. This is a retrial. The alleged victim, the accuser here, is back on the stand today, and we are going to start listening to her testimony. We won't be able to show her, obviously. She's an accuser in a sexual assault case. But we're going to listen to the specifics of what she says happened that night. Stay with us.